Okay, as we start on the last part of trigonometry ratios of general angles, I think what we want to do here is to just look at this example, and we want to try to use what we already learned to kind of figure out the ratios of cosine theta. So I'm just going to use the first example here, and using the first example, we have a right angle triangle with the trigonometry ratio of sine theta. And with this trigonometry ratio of sine theta, what we can do is actually kind of put things in ratio. And because we know that if sine theta is equals to 8 over 17, the ratio of the sides of the opposite over hypotenuse is 8 over 17. I'm not saying that we are going to assume that the length is 17 units, 17 cm or 17 whatever measurements, but we're going to assume here that the hypotenuse is in ratio as 17 parts as compared to the opposite of 8 parts. And in fact, we can actually use Pythagoras theorem here, because because this is a right angle triangle, I can actually say that the ratio of the opposite plus the adjacent square is simply equals to the hypotenuse square. This is for any right angle triangle, and since we have that the opposite and the hypotenuse, we have that so-called parts, right? 17 parts and 8 parts. We're going to put them in parts, and in this case, we can safely say that 8 square plus the adjacent, which we do not know, is equals to 17 square. And from here, I'm going to skip some steps here, and so the adjacent is simply equals to the square root of 17 square minus 8 square. I'm not exactly saying the length of the adjacent, but more like the length of the adjacent in ratio and as compared to the opposite and the hypotenuse. And that's the main difference here. And we don't want to assume here that 17 is or 8 is the length of the hypotenuse and the opposite, but the ratio, when it's put in ratio, it just makes sense. And so this is 15. The adjacent is 15 in terms of ratio, so we can simply say in ratio cosine theta is simply 15 over 17, and tangent theta would be simply the opposite over adjacent, which is 8 over 15. So I guess each of you can actually go ahead and work out the rest of B and C on your own. Yep, that's all.